who do you think it would really benefit from going, from an agency perspective, would benefit to going to something like South by Southwest? And then I guess there's a sort of honest question, which is, being honest, how much impact has it actually had on your day job?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, when you start.
So I think, it's because I had to broach that subject. So I'm Mr. Digital at Karmarama. There are lots of digital people. I'm the only one with digital in my job title. The day I joined, Charles, our chairman, said, you need to go to South by, and I went, brilliant, I'm going. And he said, who do you want to take with you? And his list of people were creative techs, head of technology, head of interactive design. And I said, I actually want to take the people who will possibly fight against going, but the people that I can bring back and change the way that we do stuff. So I said the two people that are most likely to do that are our group CEO and our chief strategy officer. So they were the two people I wanted to come, and they came. And to answer your second point, what we've got out of it, we've got some great presentations to talk to clients about, which is kind of what you want. One of the reasons was we need to come back and tell clients about stuff, and they've seen the longer version of that presentation, and that's done us good from a business development point of view, but also starting conversations with clients about new work or ways we want to change stuff. But it's actually had it's starting to have a shift in the way the agency thinks about digital work. So Martin's chart about 70-20-10 is kind of feeding its way into some conversations we're having about how to structure our creative briefs. So you can't get innovation out of every brief. You can't turn an email into something innovative. And that's what I think agencies were doing 2 years ago. They're like, brilliant, an email, let's turn it into a tweet. It's like, no, it's an email. Let's do that quickly, and then let's concentrate our efforts on agency on doing the innovative stuff. So it was kind of, for me, was taking insights from South by and distilling that into ways we could make that work. To some of Martin's points, how you make that work for an agency as much as telling clients what the next big thing was.
Martin.
So there's a little initiative within Glue called Now Lab, which everyone's got to have a lab thing, so we do. And the lab thing is about experimenting with new ways of doing things. And the processes that we're kind of referencing there, and Scott Cook and Lean Startup and all that kind of jazz, there was a lot of that. There was a startup village. It was the most unvillagey village, but it was on the second floor of the Hilton, yeah, which is one of those ghastly hotels you ever set foot in. But the village was lots of people trying to all do new things. So that was exciting. So who to take? It was to take people. The people who went from our team actually was the opposite of your experience. It was the chief tech guy and a product strategist. And from my perspective, that was kind of right, because we were trying to find ways of doing things differently. And it's the doing, I think, is 80%, 90% of the problem, because we can all come up with fancy ideas. And the challenge, I guess, and the stuff that we took out of it was that it was a lot of affirmation in the way that we were working, but also it was a bloody great big stick to beat anybody with. Because you kind of go, well, that's how they do it. And everyone goes, oh, okay, all right. So that's why you want to do it in this funny way and do these totally different odd things and get little teams together and lock them in a room for 2 months and stuff. So it was a lot of affirmation, but also I think it was just a lot of stories and a lot of contacts that kind of say, actually, there's a brave, different way of conducting business, and that's had direct effect on clients since returning. Because it's bloody uncomfortable if you do it properly. Yeah. So it's good to have a bit of a few stories to back it up with.
Nigel, I think you said that something like 200. There were 200 members of UK agencies who went out to South by Southwest. Was it really that many?
Yeah. So we estimated it at between 150 and 200 UK agency personnel. So bearing in mind there are 30-odd thousand people. It's quite handy to have something that brings still a decent number of people, but kind of, the kind of the pins and the haystack, the needles in the haystack together. But in terms of your question about, who should go, I think there's two elements to that. So I'd say who should go. Philosophically, everyone should go, because it's the most, mind-expanding, wonderful. Kind of anarchically brilliant way of just adding value to yourself and also to everything you think about, because technology is just part of life now. But then there's the next bit, which is who does go. And the really interesting trend that I've seen change is that it was the labs people and the kind of chief, creative tech officers who kind of said, I may work for an agency, but I'm really part of geekdom, and this is my place. Those fuckers go to Cannes. I hate them. I'm going to sell, and this is my place. And that's what it was like a few years back. But the kind of the genie's out of the bottle a little bit, and it's that their world is now so influential on ours so quickly. Actually, more and more people from our fraternity go, I need to go, and I've heard that someone else went in my peer group. So increasingly I hear, so Lawrence suggested the group CEO goes, group CEO talks to another group CEO, then I get the feedback saying, so the Director General of the IPA is like, I didn't go this year, I've got to go next year, a load of the lads are going, right? So it's all, it's all spreading and diverging out, which is brilliant because it's getting built into our world, but by the same token, South by is changing as that happens, and now is a real sweet spot for it for the next few years. I honestly don't know how long that will last before it's something,
it's big, isn't it?
A new iteration needs to happen.
It's a big beast. It's a big.
Yeah,
beast.
no, it's interesting. I mean, it feels a bit like it's going to it will eat itself at some point, and 31,000 people descending on a town like Austin.
Well, look what happened.
It's kind of crazy.
Look what happened with the Glastonbury. It just spawned a whole bunch of very small, interesting festivals off the back of it. So, I think that's probably going to happen. You're going to have like the Sundance has now gotten too big, and therefore Austin's got, it's got its film thing, but so has every other American city. So, it could be a very positive thing. You have lots of spin-off, like the one in Newcastle coming up. Not quite as glamorous.
That's right. Thinking
but,
digital.
So those kinds of things are just going to spawn, I think.
I think it's really, again, having, knowing Sid McGrath quite well, who, if you don't follow him on Twitter, and in fact nobody did before South by Southwest, because I think the last tweet was 2009, so there wasn't much point. But having witnessed, and he's not here so I can say it, the blossoming of Sid McGrath into a social media phenomenon. Vining, I mean, it was actually quite incredible. And it did suddenly make me realise that actually taking some of the skeptics along, but actually the skeptics with huge amount of influence, having those two completely evangelical by the end of it about what technology can do and structures and cultures, and it really, I did get the sense that you guys were going to have quite an impact in terms of what they did.
I think we're different. Glee's a very different type of agency to Karmarama. I think there's we've got a good group of digital people, but the senior people have come from traditional agencies. So I wanted to take the people that could then go, how do we start our first steps towards what does a lab mean and how do we do more innovative stuff, I think. And if you take the head of tech, or the digital guys come back and they're like, oh, they're back. What did they see? Robots, brilliant. Where's the creative brief for the next TV ads? And I think you have to disrupt, and we are disrupting the agency and causing potentially some pain in the agency in order to try and change the way we do certain types of work.
I think that's an interesting observation, which is, again, I guess it's the so what factor, which is, great, we can go to Mars and we can 3D print houses on Mars made out of Mars dust, and that's pretty cool. And it's great that Stephen Wolfram, who I agree is an absolute genius, was talking about computational engines and actually the way that we will not need humans to be lawyers or doctors, because actually we're not very far away from a computer knowing all the sort of legal cases and law, and actually just ask a computer to do it because they will know it better than a human. Or in the medicine analogy, again, sensors will be able... So humans aren't very good at diagnosing problems. So I go to a doctor, I'm not feeling very well. Well, how ill are you feeling? Oh, quite ill. How long have you been ill for? Oh, I can't remember. Is it really bad? Well, it's quite... So poor doctor can't really work out what my issue is. And then you think about all the issues in the whole world that it could be. They're not supposed to... How can they know everything? And how can they know every single treatment? But actually, a computational engine could, linked in with sensors. So actually... And all of this is quite mind-blowing. But actually, unless you try and then build it back to what is the business we're in, what do our clients do? And I guess that's always the sort of the difficulty, I think.
Well, I mean, on the computational engine stuff, I think there is I spoke actually in this room, I think, to Google, put a brief for Google. I haven't picked it up yet, but so I'll speak to Hamish about that. Essentially, there is a computational engine in marketing to be written, and you've got the IPA data mine, you've got behavioural data from Google, you've got likes and dislikes and everything from Facebook. There's a number of sources, and then you've got propensity modelling. So I think to immediate applications, I was wanting to chat to Stephen Wolfram. Not that I ever will be able to, but I might tweet him or something. But would he like to just apply his engine to marketing, because there's only so many variables and there's only so many strategies, and then we can all be freed up, because we're doing half of it with taking econometrics and then putting that into kind of modelling platforms anyway. So we're kind of halfway there. So I think the main points of that kind of thing, of stuff like as mind-blowing as Stephen Wolfram's thinking, is that actually we're applying bits of it right now, and if you just extrapolate that a little bit further, you're going to get a lot closer to a testing predictive engine than we are right now. And I think people like Google or whoever can get on with it, and as can big groups. Aegis is doing it and WPP can do it. So it's that kind of thinking, I think, and IPA should probably sponsor that and promote it. So I think it's that kind of big thinking that you kind of go, okay, well actually if we filter it down, at least I can do a test and learn strategy, do test and learn strategy properly, or do A/B testing properly, and you kind of get into a mindset. I think that was the big takeout of some of that. How do you apply it to your day-to-day stuff?
One of the things that struck me, so I don't know if you know the digital agency Poke, but the Poke boys brought along a client, and they rented a house on Airbnb. And that was pretty cool. They had a nice Texan barbecue on a Sunday. But I thought, actually, bring a client along. That's an incredible way. If you've got a client, and I thought that would be very interesting. And certainly, I think that again, it's a way of justifying to other senior agency type, why you need to be there. Well, my client, we think that we could go with our clients. I think the other thing is that actually, it's not that expensive. You can do an Airbnb once you're out there. Lots, so many parties and dinners. Lots of stuff's actually paid for. So it's actually not as expensive. I think the ticket was like $700 or $600. It's, for 5 days, I think it's pretty reasonable actually. So there are certainly arguments that you can make if you guys needed to make a business case. I guess I'd be interested in a show of hands of if anybody has a would like to go to something like that, would like to go to South by Southwest. So most people. Okay, so hands back up. Hands back up about people who'd like to go. How many think that their agency would let them go? Okay.
Oh, that's utterly disgusting. How many wanted to go?
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Name the agencies that won't let you.
You shaking.
Absolutely. I mean, even to the point, if you get medical, if you get, a bike share scheme or something, just fucking put it into a South by Southwest ticket. I mean, geez, you get a lot more beneficial from it. So I think that should be a survey in itself, as the which agencies are being so tight-fisted to...
Or take your CAN budget.
Or take your CAN budget and do something decent with it, yeah.
I mean, and we're, the IPA, we're really keen to get as many people going as possible. So it's not like a busman's holiday. We don't kind of shepherd everyone around. It's very informal. But we do provide a lot of support to people in the run-up to going out, and we're very good at helping to make the case for why agencies should be sending representatives. I struggle to get the whole agency sent, but I think I can help you make the case for why 1 or 2 people could go, and the amount that you could take away from it, and the value that we could help you demonstrate off the back of it. So we're really keen. Do get in touch with me if you want someone vaguely authoritative. Well, I'm not, but the IPA is. To help you make the case, then we can help.
We've probably got 15 minutes, and we've got I think microphone over there, microphone over here. So I thought we'd just open it up to the floor for questions.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm from LBI, and I was wondering about whether you stayed on for the film events or the music events, and seeing as they're the sort of tech, film, and music are at the cornerstone of what we do, why we stop at tech?
Budget. I think the interactive film festivals haven't happened concurrently, but there's so much going on in the interactive. You basically be missing out on stuff to go and watch films, and that's unless you're a creative director, which I think some had the kind of the magic golden path. That's a tougher gig to sell in. The music festival that happens afterwards. Again, if you're kind of doubling the length of time that you're saying there, you have to make the business case for why you're going. It's a lot easier to make a business case for digital related stuff. But absolutely, if you can get out there for all of it, or if you can get out there and for them, some people to, the business to pay half, and you say, I'm going to carry on and pay for myself to pick up the music. I think it's important though to consider the three streams of the event as really effectively very distinct events.
Yeah, the people change massively.
Yes.
The last night of the Interactive Festival, you walk down 6th Street and people are playing saxophones on roller skates, and people are out on the street. At the interactive events, everyone's inside using technology, and the music ones, everyone's like...
These tattoos came out,
tattoos and
Lots of black denim.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so also from speaking to people who were staying on, the music bit isn't very connected back into, no surprise from the record industry, but isn't really very well connected back into digital. So they don't talk about music and digital. They just, you go around and see good bands play, which is good, but is, as Nigel said, it's kind of difficult to justify to people for you to stay on, other than if you're going to do it for your own enjoyment.
We were also all broken men.
Yeah, also
5 days.
Some of you may not be 35, but even when I was 25, I'd have struggled to have done 4 days. It's like Freshers' Week, Glastonbury, and a stag do, because you get up, you go to your lectures in a way that I never did at university, from 9 till 5. Then you go out and get drunk. You get up, you have 4 hours sleep, and you get and do it again, because you don't. There's so much stuff, you can't miss anything. But after 4 days of that, your ability to absorb stuff is kind of gone. So it's really like it's a short, sharp shock.
It's a long shock.
Yeah, it's quite a long. It felt like it feels like 2 weeks.
Hello, I'm Naomi from Huge. Since you are all such evangelists of SXSWi,
We're on commission.
Yeah.
would you consider, could we do something like this over here? What are the barriers to it?
I mean, there is Digital Shoreditch, which I would urge you to go to, because the guys from Digital Shoreditch were out in Austin, and they're both really nice guys. And I think some of the people from the UK who spoke at SXSWi are at Digital Shoreditch. Can we ever do this? I mean, I feel like culturally, although Tech City is great and there are some great startups in the UK, we're a tiny country compared to the States, and I just think culturally, you might have more of a view on it, you guys, but I culturally, the startup scene in London has got a long way to go. I think Digital Shoreditch is evolving into being something that if you can't go to SXSWi, you should go to, but I don't think you'll ever get that scale of event here, really.
Yeah, I don't think depends what your objective is, scale, quality or quantity. Yeah. I think the Digital Shoreditch is as close as we get. But I think the Thinking Digital thing in the Northeast is really well respected. So I think that's, and also, I mean, likewise in Manchester, there's where the universities are kind of really active. In Glasgow, where the universities are really active in the digital scene, you get little kind of pockets, which could then justify maybe a kind of a city event, which may or may not be London, but it could emerge. But Digital Shoreditch is probably as close as it's going to get.
Also, don't forget, it's been 26, 27 years in the making. So
the interactive bit started with CD-ROMs and things like that, didn't it? So they've been playing at it for a while.
Even that was 12 years ago or something. So we see the end result, and then we say, how can we replicate the end result? And the fact is that it's the culmination of 5 years ago it was still happening, and the geeks were all there and all the rest. We weren't really talking about it massively, and all of that kind of the kind of unseen growth. It's very difficult to just replicate the kind of the cherry on top as we see it now. So that would be the cautionary tale for me. Is like, you can't just copy.
Hi, I'm Kizzy. I'm from MGA. I was just wondering, in your personal opinion, after going to SXSWi and seeing all those fantastic new techs and actually being there, experiencing it and getting your teeth into it, did you find that not only was it opening your minds to digital and what it's going to be, but also maybe how traditional media and also as if there's some sort of smooth transition there? Because I thought it was very interesting, the slide that you brought up about how nostalgia items and print and things like that and Hallmark has also seen an increase. And I think for most agencies, one of the big battles that we find is trying to get senior people to still buy into digital things. So I was just wondering, you know, from what you've seen, has it really opened your mind, and can you see a clear path whereby we can be like, guys, yeah, this is it. So easy. So I'm looking to you for the answer because you were out there.
Yeah, good luck on that one. There's an interesting thing about it was Glyn Britton was talking, wasn't he, about you know, there is no kind of natural clear path, or that's the answer. It was less it was as much the festival kind of saying business is digital. So that's it. Business is it's not about communication, not about media, not about comms. Business is digitized, right? So the digitization of content, the digitization of communications, the digitization of our everyday lives is changing business. So the conversation for any senior people is, if you don't have a digitized way of doing business, then you're going to be up shit creek without a paddle soon. So that's the kind of the grown-up conversation to be had. The role of agencies, I've kind of come out the other end. I kind of now think, let teleads be just wonderful teleads. Let posters be wonderful posters. Stop trying to make everyone involved and engaged and everything, because no one actually wants to be. You know, the notion of involvement increased the propensity to recommend. We've got a statistical proof and connection between those two things. But involvement potentially can be delivered through business, you know? So better customer service through social, better business through applications, but, you know, better trading, better usefulness. And let teleads just be wonderful teleads, because they cut through if they're wonderful, because they're wonderful films. And just be purist about the outcomes you request. Don't try to blur.
I think that's really interesting, actually, because I think going there, certainly we went to a session which was about sort of social media and the new world and where brands should be, and it was awful. It was so awful, because I guess compared to the really intelligent, difficult thoughts that were going on, suddenly to bring it back to, BP Global PR, somebody set up a spoof Twitter, and you sort of go, God, it just made it so banal. So I think certainly, you know, from talking to everybody as we sort of, or tried to talk on the way home on the flights, that actually it's not, if you want to sort of learn about social media curation and which are the right platforms and channels for comms, there are better conferences to go to.
Yeah.
There are, without doubt. It would be an absolute waste of money if you thought that it would make an impact when you came back to how B&Q develop a communications plan. It wouldn't be of any use.
I would go so far as to say that it's not worth seeing any agency people present, whatever country they're from. Not because they aren't interesting.
But they'll just talk about what we already know.
They'll talk about
brands and
comms and go, hey, we integrated, you know, saw someone from Arnold, who's a lovely guy, talk for half an hour about how they got Twitter to serve beer to people. And that's lovely, but it wasn't. And then you go and see Elon Musk and you go, the golfing ambition. I mean, it was a slightly unfair comparison, right? But it's like Mars. And I mean, Twitter beer fridges are probably more attainable than Mars. But it was just, it's that kind of shift that I think, working in an integrated agency, I'd also back up what Martin said. We're getting to the point now, it's like you can't, I think digital evangelists, me included, used to go, you above the line guys suck and it's all about digital and you're all screwed. And that's certainly when I worked at a bit of what is now LBI when I was 26. We used to walk in the room with CHI and go, you're all going down. And then they all sold their agencies for shitloads of money and didn't. But I think it's about going, within agencies, going, you're very good at doing above the line. And perfectly crafted TV ad will still do a job that possibly digital can't do, but once you get into people experiencing product, then digital is there. And so we're trying to speak to businesses about how they become more service-led, and that's digital. What's really interesting from an agency perspective is I think the big digital showcase pieces that, you know, used to be like 4 or 5 years ago, the big £1 million interactive films, and those types of projects are becoming rarer. In fact, Google are kind of the people that are keeping those kinds of projects going to a certain extent.
You're not getting out of the building.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not getting out of it. My chair seems to be sinking to the floor. But, and I think everyone else is trying to work out how social and content and search and business bits fit together, rather than going, I've got a TV ad, so I'm going to do brand amplification on digital, and that's going to get me to be an agency that fits together better.
I mean, so I tell two tales one about something that's been disrupted, and then one that's about how our industry might be affected from an angle you're not thinking about. So the first one, what was the most important aspect of how digital disrupted music content? So music content, suddenly the scarcity value of actually being able to listen to music was removed. It was virtually free until iTunes made it kind of low cost and accessible. But that completely disrupted the music industry so that everything flipped on its head, and the scarcity value was in the live event. And so suddenly you've got the Stone Roses, the Rolling Stones are about 203 coming back and doing another tour, because they can charge huge amounts, because the thing that you can't replicate in a digital world is the live event.
Yeah.
So the most interesting thing about what's happened in digital music, the impact is in the real world. So that's kind of a recent history that we can kind of reflect on. And then looking forward, the implications that how it might affect our industry is maybe your clients in certain respects will come to you first with new products and services they're offering, created by this new world. So let's take a very boring example like car insurance, right? A lot of press recently about teenage drivers are incredibly high risk, right? Especially when they drive after dark, especially when they drive with their friends. So you can now, if you're not going to trust a teenager to not do that, right? You need to have a means of collecting data on behalf of that kind of insurance policy. So it's like you can have a drive any time policy with us for £5,000, Mr. 18-year-old. But tell you what, if you let us put a telemetry box in your car and we monitor your social graph so that we can confirm that you never drive after 6 p.m. with your friends or after 9 p.m. at all, then it will cost you £300 a year, right? And that's the kind of thing when in that particular field, an insurance company could suddenly come and blow your mind with, oh my God, they're so far ahead of us. They're not so far ahead of you, they have one aspect of the way the world is changing their business, and they're just really focused on their business. So you have to be aware, and this is the kind of thing that SXSWi arms you with. It's like when that kind of comment, that kind of feedback comes in, you're aware of where it's kind of coming from and can kind of create some kind of answer to it.